25 years after the fall of the Berlin Wall, unified Germany is often praised for its transformation into the richest country in Europe. But the economy is not without problems. In what was West Germany, questions are being asked over continuing subsidies paid to the former East.
On top of that, renewed tensions with Russia threaten German exports and growth. VOA's Henry Ridgwell went to Germany to cover the wall fall anniversary. Here's what he had to say about the country's progress and challenges since.
After the Berlin Wall fell and German reunification in 1990, part of the deal was that West Germans, being a much richer country, would pay this solidarity tax to help the standard of living rise in the East. And the pendulum has almost swung in the opposite direction for many cities, which are prospering because of their geographical location, really, and they've historically been exporting a lot to Russia as well.
Deputy Mayor Ð³Ð² says Dresden and other eastern cities are success stories of a unified Germany.
The three cities, Dresden, Leipzig, Jena, are a prime example of a structural transformation done well.
Contrast Dresden with Dortmund, a former industrial hub in West Germany. Its unemployment rate is 12.4%, nearly double the national average, and the city is millions of dollars in debt.
It's important not to overemphasize the prosperity of the East, I think. Most economists are keen to point out that the East remains poorer than the West. Don't forget, in the West, you've got cities like Frankfurt, Mannheim, and so on, these centers of financial transactions which really generate a lot of German GDP. One thing to point out, remember Commander Hadfield at the International Space Station. One of the most famous photographs that he tweeted was a photo of Berlin, and it showed still, incredibly, a division between East and West Berlin. The lights in West Berlin were more modern and they were fluorescent white lights, and those in East Berlin are still the old sodium lights, which were yellow. And to see it from that perspective, that line dividing a city, I think shows you how far still Germany has to go, although a lot of progress has been made.
So going from West Berlin into East Berlin, tell me your impressions of walking from west to east.
In the West, clearly it benefited from the prosperity of the second half of the 20th century, and it very much has that Western European feel about it. Going east and crossing over that now imaginary line, you do notice the change in architecture more than anything else. Of course, we're all familiar with that sort of brutalist, I suppose, communist architecture, the very square blocks, the very functional-looking buildings that were put up by the communist authorities under the direction of the Soviet Union. And a lot of those still survive, and a lot of them are being renovated or knocked down and replaced. And so East Berlin is really very much a building site still. There's cranes everywhere. Germany has a lot of money, and it's ploughing a lot of it into trying to build its capital into, I guess, a city worthy of its name.
So going forward, how will East and West continue to integrate? And, you know, what about this tax? Is there an end in sight?
I think the debate is growing over that solidarity tax, and over the next few years, I think it probably will become more of a patchwork tax, perhaps a local council tax, something like that, where the more prosperous cities in the West continue to pay money towards bringing up the poorer places in the East. I don't think the situation can carry on much longer, whereby, for example, the mayor of Dortmund says that he's had to take out a new loan simply to pay the money to help the East, where they're doing quite well. But in terms of how the East Germans and the West Germans, former East Germans and West Germans, get on with each other, I think that every year that goes past, progress is made towards becoming a more unified country. And there is that positive feeling now that it has turned a corner, that people feel that they are 21st century citizens leading a European Union. And of course there are black marks on that horizon, not least the European Union, which is struggling for growth, and it's struggling to find really its political structure. And secondly, for East Germany, which still has strong links with Russia, harking back to the Soviet days, Now the sanctions applied by the European Union and the retaliatory sanctions applied by Moscow are really cutting their trade across that border. But overall, I think still some way to go, 25 years on, but a lot of progress has been made.
And our thanks to Henry Ridgwell. He covers news from Europe for VOA.